Alright guys, Warren Williams. Welcome to WarrenWilliamsCoaching.com. So today we're going to talk about the four doctors. So basically, if you are trying to attain a level of health, vitality and spirituality, you have to balance your four doctors. It doesn't really matter what you do in life. If you want to maintain what we call homeostasis, which is a state of equilibrium or balance, you have to be living your four doctors. Now, the four doctors are Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Happiness or Dr. Happy, and Dr. Movement. Now, applying these to your life means you live it every single day and every single moment of every single day. So, applying Dr. Diet would be simply understanding what foods are right for you. So a lot of people talk about metabolic typing, which basically means understanding the macronutrient ratios that are specific for your individual body. That is known as biochemical individuality. So, as an example, an Eskimo, which means eaters of meat, would eat great volumes of protein in the form of meat. So about 90% of their diet would be fat and protein. And a very small amount of their diet would be carbohydrates because of the fact that they live in a non-tropical environment where vegetation doesn't really grow well, so they eat a high diet of proteins. Now that food would do well for an Eskimo, but for someone that lives in a very tropical environment where there's a lot more fruit and vegetation, such as certain Native American tribes, they can eat far more carbohydrates because they're in a tropical environment, so their ratio will be completely different. So there's a saying, one man's food is another man's poison. So some people do very well in high forms of protein to low forms of carbohydrate ratio, and some people do far better in high volumes of carbohydrates to very low protein ratio. Typically, people that eat as vegetarian or vegan would do better in a carbo type metabolic type, and those who eat lots of protein and fat will either be a mixed type or a protein type. So that's what we mean by living Dr. Diet. But it also means being present, because if you just eat one good meal a day and the rest of the time you think you can eat bad, then that's not actually living that doctor, that's applying that at a specific time. Or if you're, like, as an example, a lot of athletes, they eat really good, but only when they're in training camp. And their training camp might last 6 weeks, but then they have like a 4-month gap between training camps, and then they just pig out. That's not living Dr. Diet. That is applying Dr. Diet for a short period of time. Another example of that is people that want to lose weight, typically women that are put under pressure to be a certain size, like a size 0. They may eat really well because they have a wedding coming up, so they'll crash diet to come down to a certain weight, and once that period is over, they just eat how they used to eat. So that's not living Dr. Diet. So living Dr. Diet is applying it in your daily life. All the choices you make are made to support the vitality, health, and well-being of your body. So you eat by being aware of the foods that are right for you. Dr. Happiness means applying the dream. Applying the dream means that everything you do every single day allows you to live in a way that is conducive or congruent to that dream. So you make choices every single day that supports your dream. So we kind of went through this in one of my other videos when I was talking about legacy. But in a short version, basically you have to identify your core values, the principles that you live by. Once you identify your core values, then you know the things that support your dream, because your dream is congruent to your core values. So every choice that you make every single day, if you say, I am not going to work for less than X amount of pounds a week, or I'm not going to work less than or more than 5 miles away from my home, and you make those choices, then you are supporting your dream. There's a saying, success is getting what you want, but happiness is wanting what you get. So Dr. Happy means you are living your dream. As we say, Dr. Happy is the dreamer. Okay, so then the next one is Dr. Movement. Now, Dr. Movement means everything that you do in nature that's movement based. So exercise, going outside and being active. Now, some people, they use Dr. Movement, they don't apply it. They use Dr. Movement by going to the gym. They'll go and train 3 times a week. But outside of that, they'll just sit at home watching TV and not hardly moving around. So they're not moving except for 3 hours a week. Or they'll train at the gym and they'll go and work, 10 hours a day. And in that 10 hours, they're sedentary, they're being very, very still. So they're not really applying Dr. Movement. Applying Dr. Movement means you train, but outside of that, when you are working, you are being still for great periods of time. Every hour you get up and you say, right, I've got to apply Dr. Movement. You go and do some stretches, you do some Tai Chi, On your lunch break, you wouldn't just sit inside and be still. You would walk to the park and you would do some Tai Chi in the park and you'd walk back. Whenever you eat a big meal, you'd use doctor movement to walk, so you can help stimulate the digestive system to move, and when it moves, it helps to pump fluids and food through the system, so you'd be applying and living doctor diet. And then the last one is the chief physician, which is Dr. Quiet. Dr. Quiet is the chief physician because in order for you to know when you are eating foods that are wrong for you, you have to be quiet enough, which means aware or present with the food that you're eating to be able to identify whether or not it's the right foods for you in the first place. You have to get quiet and listen, connect to that. Dr. Quiet relates to exercise. If you are doing exercises that are damaging the body, like most people are doing, you would be quiet enough to be able to hear the body, you would be present enough with the exercises to know if those are the right exercises for you. So you are applying Dr. Quiet in movement and in exercise. So that is being present. Dr. Happy. In order for you to be able to find the dream, you have to be quiet enough to sit down and to connect to your core values. Once you connect to your core values, you can establish what your dream is. So again, that's Dr. Quiet. So Dr. Quiet applies to everything. If you overeat, that means you are not aware when your stomach is full, because you're not present to the food that you're eating. You're probably eating way too quickly anyway, and by the time you finish the meal, oh my gosh, I'm full. That's because you're not being present. So Dr. Quiet is the chief physician because you have to live in quiet to be able to hear when you need to move, when you need to digest, when you need to establish your dream. So these are the 4 doctors. So remember, there's a big difference between using a doctor and living a doctor. In our society today, it's so much more important to live our doctors because we're trying to offset the stress that we go through every single day. So remember to apply your 4 doctors. Once you apply your 4 doctors in your life, you will find out all the pains that you're getting are only a symptom or an expression of the ability, or the inability to live your 4 doctors and to be present with every waking moment of your life. So as we always say, people invite illness into their body because they are unaware of the symptoms that are being expressed in their body because they're not getting quiet enough to listen. Live your doctors, apply, like I always say to you, we apply or empower ourselves to live our own 4 doctors, and therefore we are the masters of all things that we do and achieve in our lives.